Leslie, is some of those parts are not adults. And so when we're in a holiday situation, we may have already had a conversation with those parts that says, here's what's going to happen when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
But what part of us may perceive as pinging for good reason, because at the age they were, it would be. Our
Yes.
adult self might be able to navigate that very differently. And so we're having these two conversations, a young person's perspective of what's going on and our adult person's perspective of what's going on. And to not get hijacked and have the young person's perspective take over our thinking.
That's
Is
right.
that, yeah.
Yeah, what you're naming is really important because one of the things that we can do that we often don't even realize that we can do is to let our little parts, our little vulnerable, wounded parts, to give them permission to not come to the Christmas dinner. So that's one strategy, is to just really have a conversation with your little vulnerable parts that you're, concerned might get activated or feel rewounded, and to let them know they can, and you ask the part where it wants to go. That's one of the beautiful things about IFS, is it's really about listening to your own system. And so you can just ask inside, what is this little 5-year-old, who feels really vulnerable and maybe had some wounding experiences. What does that 5-year-old need in order to feel okay about, me going to this Christmas dinner with my family? And sometimes parts will say, I just want to be tucked in your heart and held there, and so that I know that you're there. Sometimes they'll say things like, I don't want to be there, I want to go play, I want to be with my friends. So there's a whole range of responses, but we always just want to check with our parts and see what feels right for them. And they can tell us, and our parts are so wise, right? Our parts know what they need. And so all we have to do is ask.
Our parts, we were talking about a little part not wanting to go to the holidays.
Right.
Now, what I found, and I'm sure you have too, is there are young parts, and there seem to be, if they trust capital S self, that's a comfortable scenario. There are some teen parts that are by nature, because they're teens, rebellious. So what advice do you have for the teen parts that come up into those conversations?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you asked that question. So, because I can just tell you from personal experience, I have some teen parts that are pretty snarky, right? And that have a little bit of an attitude. And so appropriately so. And instead of shaming or, trying to change that, we welcome it in and say, yeah, of course, this teenager, this 13-year-old or 14-year-old, has an attitude. And let's get to know it and learn more about what it was like for this part when it was 14, what was happening in its world, and let's just befriend it. And so it's really just about welcoming our parts in and not trying to push them away, not trying to change them, but just really being curious and holding an open-hearted space to get to know them and learn more about them. And there's nothing like going to a family holiday gathering to help you identify all the parts that get activated within you. So another great, thing you can do is to just hold curiosity as you go and interact with your family and notice what's coming up for me.
That's a great opportunity to do a parts inventory.
That's exactly right.
Prior to
That's
the
right. That's